Good evening and welcome. Tonight we'll be going over the history and geography of Cyprus. This is my best little map of Cyprus. There is a bigger one in my bigger atlas, but everything listed on it is in English, Greek, and Turkish, so you can't really see anything. It's covered in words. So it has a little bit more detail, but it's very hard to read. This is a little bit easier to read. And you're going to find out why in its history, why it has so many languages associated with it. But let's do geography and then history, and then I'll zoom out so we can flip through this book right here, and I'll show you some fantastic pictures of Cyprus. So Cyprus is located in the Mediterranean Sea. Just north of there is Turkey. Over here we have, I wonder if you can see it on this map. Yeah, we've got Lebanon and Syria over here. But Turkey's actually a lot closer to it, I believe. Yeah, like Turkey's just, anyway, you can't see on this map. So it's in that corner. Greece is kind of over there. We've got Africa just down there. So it's in like that farthest corner of the Mediterranean. And as you can see, it's a pretty mountainous little island. There are two main mountain chains. There's the Troodos Mountains, which are the biggest ones. The highest point is like right around here. It's not on this map. It's called Mount Olympus. And there's also the Kyrenia Mountains going up through here. And then in between is an area that I think is pronounced the Messoria Plain. Not positive on that, but it's the breadbasket of Cyprus. It's where most of the farming is. There's also some kind of more down here, but it's mostly up here. And the capital city of Nicosia is located right smack dab in it. Now, you're wondering, what is this big purple line going right through the island? This is a UN buffer zone. And basically, this half is the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. And everything down here is just regular Cyprus, I guess. We'll obviously get into it in its history. But there's sort of like a no man's land right in between. It slices right through the capital city. And it's administered by peacekeepers to keep the peace. So up here in the northern area, we have this very pronounced peninsula up here, which is called the Carpus Peninsula. And for the most part, it's not really inhabited. It's mostly like a big nature reserve, mostly for like birds and things. So you can see there's lots of various different peninsulas all around the coast. This is another big one on those pictures in here that has a lot of like nature reserves on it. But all around on both sides of the island is luxurious beaches, because we're in the Mediterranean, right? Of course there's luxurious beaches. It's pretty much like a vacation destination, especially for like the British / English speaking peoples of Europe, I suppose. Speaking of the British, you can see on this map that there are two areas that are British military bases. There's one in Akrotiri down here, and up here, and I think it's Dhekelia in English. Again, everything is in English, Greek, and Turkish here. Alright, sorry if you can hear that. There's someone yelling outside. Just one of the things that comes with living in a big city, I suppose. But for the most part, that's what I wanted to mainly talk about in its geography. Also, around its coast are lots of different ruins of various historical cities, mostly like from ancient Greece. But before that, there was a community of hunter-gatherers that established itself on the island by 8200 BCE, and they constructed a little town that still mostly is around. I mean, it's been like excavated, It's called, I cannot pronounce it. It's like super Greek. It's like Nicosia. and it was built sometime around 6800 BCE, and that culture disappeared. We don't know what happened to them. All that's left is pretty much that little town and the little ruins associated with it. But eventually, around 1400 BCE, the Mycenaeans came in, which was a Greek culture from like Greek antiquity. And many Greeks settled on the island, and so did many Phoenicians, who were a people from what is now Lebanon. And they were big seafarers. Of course, they came by the island and established their own little towns. The Greeks had their own little towns. And yeah, it was like that for quite a while until 708 BCE, when the Assyrians took over. And then not long, well, a couple hundred years later, not long after that, in 545 BCE, the Achaemenids took over, which was the Persian Empire, as they were expanding toward Greece, trying to take over as much of the Greek area as they could. And in 499 BCE, the Ionian Revolt took place up kind of near the mainland, and the Greek Cypriots took part in that as well, but that rebellion was squashed by the Persians. Very famously, Alexander the Great came through Persia and took it over, so the island came under his control, but he died not long after that. So the island came under the control of Ptolemaic Egypt, which Ptolemy was one of Alexander's generals who took over his realms in Egypt, so they just took over the island as well. Eventually it came under Roman control in 58 BCE, as the Romans came through and took over most of Ptolemaic Egypt. And when the Roman Empire split in two in 395 CE, Cyprus became part of the Byzantine or the Eastern Roman Empire. Now I know that's a lot of cultures that came through and took over the island, but we're just getting started. It's about to get a little bit more confusing. So even though they were part of, like technically they were part of the Byzantine Empire, there was like a king that ruled over the island, who was under the control of the Byzantine Empire. The Crusades popped up over that way as as Muslims took over Jerusalem and Christians were trying to come over and take it from them. One of the big crusaders in the 1100s was Richard I of England. He was over here doing his crusader thing when he arranged a marriage with a German, well, it wasn't German then, but Germanic, I suppose, princess who sailed down with his sister to meet him so they could get married, and they shipwrecked on the island. The king held them hostage, so in 1191, Richard I of England came and took the island so he could get his wife. She had been kidnapped. Eventually, he passed the island on to, changed hands a couple times. It eventually ended up in the hands of Guy of Lusignan, which was another big crusader of the time. So the island came under the jurisdiction of the Lusignan dynasty. And in 1437, the last male Lusignan heir died. His wife was Venetian, so the Venetians came in and claimed the island. And the Venetian legacy lives on in a lot of the cities around the coast. They fortified and rebuilt a lot of the cities on Cyprus, and that's mainly because the Ottomans saw an opportunity and were attacking about like the early 1500s. The Venetians were defending their new island territory, and it all came to a head in 1570 when the Ottomans launched a massive invasion of Cyprus and took over the island. It became part of the Ottoman Empire. And at this point, a lot of, well, the Ottoman Empire is based in Turkey, right? It's what was left of the Byzantine Empire after the Ottomans took it over, became the Ottoman Empire. I'm phrasing this very poorly, but it's a complicated history, as you can tell. I'm trying to paraphrase it as best as I can. So the Ottomans take over, and the Ottomans are in what is now Turkey. So a lot of Turks start to move into the island. A lot of Greeks get pushed out. They go back to Greece. But for the most part, from this point on, the island kind of becomes 60-40 with Greek, like 60-ish%, Turks at 40-ish%. It fluctuates throughout history, but for the most part, that's kind of where it's at. The Ottoman Turks were in control, but they kind of, for the most part, kind of let the Greek Cypriots sort of do their thing in terms of religion. But if there was an opportunity to suppress, they would take it, basically, especially after 1821. Greece was conquered by the Ottoman Empire, and they had fought for their independence in that year. So a lot of Greek Cypriots, kind of had an idea, and it sparked a concept that's known as enosis. I think that's how it's pronounced. Which was a concept that, it's kind of hard to describe. It's not, but how Brexit was the term to describe England leaving the European Union. Enosis was the term to describe a union of Cyprus and Greece. Basically the opposite of a Brexit, like a union, so to say. It was a movement to unite Cyprus with Greece and make it part of Greece, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And of course, the Ottoman Turks did not like this idea and tried to keep it from happening at all costs. Flash forward to the 1800s. The Ottomans fight a war with Russia, fighting over territory as usual, like the Russians did. The British didn't like the Russians, so they offered to help out the Ottomans. They had the British stationed here on the island to help out, but then they lost. And during the treaty, the island was leased and eventually given to the British, with the Ottomans owned it, but the British controlled it. And it became very useful because the Suez Canal is just down there, right? So it became a good little station to watch over the Suez Canal from. And eventually, World War I happens. The British and the Ottomans are on opposite sides, so Britain annexes the island and makes it into a crown colony in 1925. So you can kind of understand now why there's English, Greek, and Turkish spoken on this island. Many different languages happening, but today pretty much nearly everyone can speak English. But anyway, it was a colony of the British. The Greeks and the Turks, however, still don't really see eye to eye. The Greeks really want to unite the island with Greece. The Turks do not. The Turkish Cypriots actually really seemed, at least on the political level, seemed to enjoy the British presence on the island and the British influence, because the British did not want to unite Cyprus with Greece. They wanted to keep it, obviously. And eventually, over time, that led to resistance groups and underground groups fighting each other, Greek groups and Turkish groups. And eventually, once Britain started to give its colonies the option for independence, it was granted on August 16th, 1960. And, the two ethnic groups, there was still a lot of tension. Some violence erupted in 1963. Don't really want to get into why. It's a little sad. But because of the violence, Turkey threatened to invade, which kind of left the situation pretty politically tense. Then in 1974, a pro-Enosis military junta overthrew the government in a coup. So Turkey took that opportunity to invade, to protect its Turkish citizens and its interests in the island. There was a 3-day conflict that led to a ceasefire. Basically, this whole section was as far as Turkey invaded, so they drew the line there. And in 1983, the Turks never left, right? The invaded Turks never left. They declared this the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which, as you can see here in my map, only Turkey recognized this country. No other country in the world recognizes this as an independent country. The war, I mean, obviously that led to a lot of unrest, but it led to a lot of Greek Cypriots in the region fleeing to the south, left a lot of Turkish Cypriots fleeing to the north, a lot of displacement. So for the most part, this area is predominantly Greek. This area is predominantly Turkish, with Nicosia having its own Greek and Turkish sides to the city. In 2004, the UN tried to launch a big peace agreement. Cyprus also joined the EU that year. And like with the assumption that this would be resolved sometime soon. So the UN really tried in 2004, and again I want to say in 2015 or so, to try to fix this, and it still hasn't been fixed. It's still pretty much like this. It's, from what I understand in researching, it's not like North Korea and South Korea. It's not that kind of like buffer zone. There's a lot of areas where people are allowed to cross through, especially in Nicosia. And mostly like the young people, they don't care, you know. It's sort of like the older generational problem, you know, not so much theirs. So I feel like this is one of the things that will resolve itself in time. We just kind of need the next generation to step up into like the government and assume power and figure this out. But for now, this is what it's at. It's the invasion created a lot of interesting little ghost towns. Mainly, I want to say in Kyrenia. There's one just outside the city that used to be like a British resort town that was completely abandoned and still is to this day. I mean, you're not allowed to go in it, but it's very eerie there. But pretty, for the most part, that's pretty much like the main economic damage of that division. You know, it like I said, it's still a tense thing, but not to the point where like it's about to break out into a massive civil war, and you know that there's like political maneuvering, blah blah blah. There is, but not to a drastic, life-threatening level, you know. So anyway, let me zoom this out and see if I can do it. Zoom it out so you can see the book. So let's see what we've got in here. Look at this. The Mediterranean, right? Absolutely gorgeous. It's such a beautiful little island. I can see why it's such like a tourist hotspot. We've got, oh, look at this. The flag of Cyprus and Great Britain intertwined there. It's interesting little graphic there. And some very cultural dress there. Can't really tell. It looks kind of more Turkish, doesn't it? Some of the mountains. It's a very, very beautiful country. There's a little map of Cyprus. Kind of a plain one, but not crowded like all my other maps are. This is the Kouris Dam. Water is kind of an issue in Cyprus. There's later things on it. Some beautiful orchids we found the island. Some sweet little baby turtles getting hatched on the beach. And here's the mouflon, which, according to this book, if I remember what it said, this is pretty much like the only wild animal that's on the island nowadays. But yeah, there's not like, you know, moose or anything like that. That was a weird example. Just like there isn't like a rampant wildlife everywhere other than like the usual like birds and stuff. Limassol, a little coastal city, very beautiful. Let me put this pencil down before we mark up the book. There we go. All right. Okay, my pencil almost rolled off the desk all loud. Okay, there we go. One of the ancient towns. This is Paphos, I believe it is. I'm not good at pronouncing Greek things or Turkish things. So. I apologize for any mispronunciations throughout this video. I'm doing my best. Here's a really beautiful old mosaic from its very ancient Greek history from Curium, I believe. Here's another little mosaic, very Byzantine style. You can see the Middle East over here. I don't think I can get my big map of Cyprus in here. You can see lots of Turkey over here though, but Cyprus is down there. So you're gonna get some Middle East shots. If I can get the book back. Alright, a little bit of a chaotic video, but we're getting through it. Here's a map of the Ottoman Empire in 1683 at its greatest extent. It was a pretty big one until it wasn't. What else do we have? We have some UN peacekeepers over here. Looks like they're looking for landmines. And here's one of the British Air Force bases. So there's been quite a lot of movement to try to, there's been a movement to try to get the more British military presence off the island. But they're still there, as military bases tend to do. Government building there. Very fancy. You can see it's the flag of Cyprus, that's the flag of Greece, so this is obviously in the Greek portion. Right, so this was the former president, Stavros Malis. And I believe, yep, on this page is the current president, Nikos Anastasiades. I hope. And here is the president of Northern Cyprus, Mustafa Akinci. I hope. And here is Kofi Annan, who was the UN Secretary General, who tried to launch the Annan plan to get the island reunited, but it did not happen. The cat snoring loudly. Here you can see the two presidents shaking hands, being friendly. Let me wake the cat up, everybody. Hey, hey, no more snoring, please. Okay. I hate doing that to him, but he snores so loud. Some of the money in both parts of Cyprus. We've got a very tiny picture of a farm there. There we go. Very small. And we've got a tiny little picture of some potatoes. Yum yum. We've got beautiful olive grove, because of course we're in the Mediterranean. Gotta have your olives and olive oil. So here's a reservoir. You can see the low water levels. Water shortages have been kind of a thing. And oh, it's over here. But first of all, there's this beautiful beach. This talks about like the dangers of tourism, but the Turkish government's been trying to build a pipeline, and just to get like a water pipeline, not like an oil pipeline, to help out with the water solution. But you know, the people of the Greek part of Cyprus is like, well, that's nice, but do we really want help from Turkey, kind of like our enemy? It's a point of contention, so to say. So this is the Akamas Peninsula, which is on the like westernish corner. Another beautiful little nature area. I told you there'd be a picture. It's beautiful. And we have a party playing his sax and the keyboard there. Some Greek traditional dancing happening there. And a person in really wonderful Turkish clothes there, very traditional. And this is a Maronite cathedral. The Maronites are a form of like Christianity that came about in the Middle East, in Lebanon, I want to say. So it's like a Middle Eastern fused Christianity, so to say. Beautiful countryside. It's so lovely. Very Mediterranean, right? Here's Nicosia, capital city. Big hustle bustle. We've got these dudes chilling in the coffee house there. And a beautiful little mountain village. Very peaceful. Very beautiful. commentary there. Pictures in this book are so tiny. Look at this kid. He has put some, what are those called? I had those in my school. They're like little blocks that stick together, and they do stick to your hair. He's making a little hat out of them. And a little street there, it says it's time for siesta, so everything's closed. People can take their naps. A really beautiful Greek Orthodox church. There's just something about the white buildings with the blue roofs. It's so beautiful. I love those colors together. This is St. Paul. I'm not very biblically literate. I'm not Christian, so I don't know all the legends, but I know he had some like adventures on Cyprus. It talks about it on here, but if you know the story, then you know the story. There's a really beautiful monastery. That's lovely. And a really beautiful mosque up there too. Lots of beautiful buildings. And some Maronites celebrating a mass. Looks like a painting, doesn't it? That's a gorgeous picture. Hope enjoying the nice day on their bicycles. A sign in Greek and English for some coffee. A sign in Turkish and English. No fishing. And there's some newspapers down here in all kinds of different languages. So you can read your news in your language. Some very traditional Greek style dancing right there. Very old artifact here. It's an amphora, which I don't really know what an amphora is. I think it's like I want to say it's like a drinking thing, but I'm not sure. It's really neat though. Some very beautiful ancient buildings here, medieval architecture. And the gorgeous frescoes in the church. Look at that, how colorful. That's incredible. And some modern art as well. Very interpretive. You can see the modern pollution with the ancient structures there. I like that. Doing some like lace work there. Traditional crafts. This is a band from Cyprus, Monsieur Dumani, I believe. And this guy is playing a flute at his market. This is like, if you know what this means, he's like the guy that gives you your side quest in the video game. Basically. That's an awesome picture. I really like it. He's definitely an NPC. Alright. Beautiful beach. Very luxurious. Very relaxing. Grilling some sausages here. These kids like sausages. And some tourists out here enjoying the beautiful day out on the water. And here's the rocky Mediterranean coastline there. A Turkish bath. The hammam. Yep, hammam. And it's a taxi, it says, waiting to pick up people, join the nightlife. Soccer is, of course, a big deal, as it is in most parts of the world, and apparently so is basketball. It's Cyprus versus, is that Gibraltar? I think so, from what I can see on there. Look at this outfit for this festival. Oh, it's Carnival, I think. Got the fruit on her head. I like that. Here's Good Friday procession. And it says this is for the Festival of the Flood. They've got lots of, looks like nuts and things there to eat at the festival. Oh my gosh, look at some Turkish delight. Have you guys ever tried Turkish delight? I mean, it's pretty famous from Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, but it's disgusting. It does not taste good. Not worth turning your siblings over to the White Witch for. There's a wonderful face right there. Food. Nice little spread there. We've got some, oh my gosh, some bread with olive oil on it and the feta cheese. I'm not a fan of Greek food, but it's pretty much like my favorite parts of Greek food. The big spread, this is the meze, which means mixture, so pretty much everything all laid out. And some Turkish food all laid out. And some baklava, which I don't like baklava either. It's way too sweet for me. I don't know what it is about it. It's too like candied. Like I don't know how to describe it, but some fresh fruit and veg and some yogurt. You know, I was thinking how so many different cultures have like their recipe for yogurt and how they're very proud of it. Here's just another example. Grilled pork skewer, yum yum. And sesame dip. I bet that's good. Oh, with some pita bread. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And here's another map of Cyprus. You can see there's Turkey. It's not too far away across the Mediterranean. Turkish section and Greek section down there. And you can see that's where it's located in the world. So that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope that you found this video relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a very good night. Good night.